Hi everyone, my name is Erica Wood with the Hopkins County Extension Office, and I'm back with another video. And today I'm going to talk to you about the wonderful world of bromeliads, and incorporated in the Bromeliaceae family are air plants. So let's talk about them a little bit and some general care and maintenance tips. So just to start out with, bromeliads are a very diverse family of plants. They're primarily New World plants, so really native to our regions of Central and South America. We even have some native bromeliads like in the state of Florida. And really there's only like one actual species of bromeliad that's not found uh, in that region, in those regions, and that is one species in Africa. So bromeliads really can range in a diverse environment. They can be found in kind of a desert climate and almost act like succulents, or what we most commonly see them as are in our tropical rainforests, serving as epiphytes. And epiphytes basically meaning these are plants that could be found attaching themselves in trees or the branches of trees and other similar structures. And they're not parasitic. They're not necessarily taking any kind of nutrients away from the tree. They're actually receiving their nutrients and their water from the leaf litter and debris, decaying matter that's found up in those canopies. And an interesting thing about bromeliads, and especially you'll notice with air plants, is they have these little structures in their leaves called trichomes. And these trichomes are actually able to, again, kind of take in that nutrients, take in that water through their leaves. And so when we talk about care tips, we'll talk about like how important it is to soak these plants because they really don't have a root system. Or if they do have a root system, it's really serving more for the purpose of anchoring the plant to a structure rather than actually being used to absorb nutrients and water. So something interesting there. So bromeliads, like I said, they're quite an expansive family. Most commonly you see things like our Guzmanias. Sometimes this goes by the name scarlet star, although the beautiful flowering bract here actually comes in a wide range of colors, and there's a lot of cultivars and hybrids out there. You can see mine's kind of more of this orangey yellow, but they come in reds, whites, pinks, different colors. And the nice thing about Guzmanias are they are very easy to care for. Their strap-like leaves are very smooth. They have a what we call an entire leaf margin. It's a very smooth leaf margin, so you don't have to worry about cutting yourself on them, such as some of the other bromeliads we'll talk about. But these are really nice because these flowering bracts are very long lasting. Now, something to note with bromeliads, and most of them, this is the case. Bromeliads will typically flower, and eventually after flowering, that mother plant is going to die. The mother plant's going to decline. And so after flowering, or even sometimes before flowering, the mother plant will start to produce offsets, or just kind of these little pups that typically are coming out of the base of the plants. And once the pups get big enough, you actually can divide them from the mother plant and basically start the whole process all over again. So even though the mother plant only blooms once before it's pretty well finished, it may last for a long time, and then it'll produce pups that you can eventually propagate, and those pups, as they mature over the next few years, will eventually flower again and kind of start that process over. So that's kind of the interesting thing with bromeliads. So if you've had a bromeliad and you've seen it kind of start to decline after flowering and you were worried about it dying, I mean, that's that's its natural life cycle, okay? That's when it's just critical to keep those pups and repot up those pups. So that's how you keep them long term. And I'll say air plants are the same way. Air plants will flower for you, and then they will form pups. So you can kind of see here with this one, this is actually the mother plant, and this is the pup that's coming off of it. And then back here are actually some interesting like big aerial roots that are coming out of it. Now, as I mentioned before, there are other types of bromeliads. So we have certain species like Neoregelia that do not have a smooth margin, a smooth leaf edge. And so you want to be mindful of some of these species because it can be quite jagged, almost like a cactus. It can be almost spiny like a cactus. So you don't want to give yourself or your fingers a cut or accidentally walk past it and then get a cut on your arm. So even though for the most part these bromeliads are what we consider pet friendly, like relatively non-toxic if they were to be consumed, it may still not be fun for pets or children or yourself for some of these more spiny species. So that's just something important to note there. And you can kind of see here on this plant, this is actually a pup right there that's coming out of the mother plant. Now, the cool thing with species like Neoregelias is that they are called the blushing bromeliad. And air plants are kind of similar too, where kind of these inner leaves will start to turn red right as they begin to bloom. And so bromeliads can have a wide range of blooms, from kind of these beautiful flowering bracts with these small flowers like that are found in between. Usually the flowers might be like yellow or purple in color, or the flowers could be more sessile and found actually within the inner cup, and they're pretty small and almost kind of like this, in a way, like this triangular, like tri-petaled look to them. So just kind of depending on the pollinator that naturally pollinates the plants in the wild. So let's talk a little bit about care and maintenance of these bromeliads. So if you want to try to keep your bromeliad long term, here are some things to know. First off is light. So these are going to need bright indirect light, okay? If you have a cultivar that's like really colorful, if you want it to maintain its colored appearance, or if it has more mottling or this pretty spotting, then you'll want to put it in brighter light, okay? I've grown these primarily in east and west facing windows, and they've done very well. West facing, you know, really helps to keep kind of their coloration to them. Whereas your more solid green varieties like your Guzmania can probably tolerate being in lower light conditions. They may not grow as fast for you, or their pups may not grow as fast in lower light, but they can certainly tolerate those conditions. And then you just need to be mindful of too much bright direct sunlight, like direct rays on the plant, could potentially scorch the leaves. So just kind of watch out for that, and just be mindful of it. So that's general lighting conditions. Could these benefit from more humidity? Absolutely. Most of the ones that you're growing are found in the rainforest. They're going to benefit from, you know, at least 40 to 60% humidity. But you know, if not, they can tolerate lower humid environments. But you can increase the humidity by setting them near a humidifier, putting a tray of pebbles and filling that with water beside the plants, grouping the plants together. Those sorts of things can help. Even putting them in a kitchen or a bathroom that has more light, that can get some of that extra humidity too, can make a difference. So that's humidity. When it comes to watering, this is tricky because it's really going to depend on quite a bit of factors, okay? So, you probably see a lot on the internet about watering the cup. And it makes sense because, like, where they're found as epiphytes, a lot of the water, rain is caught in the cup, and it almost acts as a reservoir for the plant, to kind of keep it going if there's more like drought-like periods. Now, here's the thing though. We are growing our bromeliads for the most part in containers. And so it's important that you still would be watering the soil, because when you're growing them in containers, these bromeliads are actually utilizing their roots and growing their roots. Maybe not as much, like they definitely don't need as big of a container as other plants, but you want to make sure the soil just doesn't dry out and get too hydrophobic. Okay, so definitely be watering the soil when it starts to feel dry to the touch. Now, especially going down like 1 to 2 inches with your finger down in the soil. Now, when it comes to watering the cup, here's my recommendation. I wouldn't recommend putting water in the cup, especially very often if it's in low light conditions, because often that plant in low light, that water may not evaporate as quickly. The plant may not take it up or need it as quickly. And so sometimes that water can become stagnant and then almost create rotting conditions. So you don't want that for the plant. So I would be watering the cup more often if the plant's in higher light, and then maybe for plants that are in terracotta pots that are naturally going to absorb that water more often. The key is just you want it to be able to take in that water in that cup more often, so that it's not just lingering for weeks on the end and then could be causing your plant to develop rot. So just kind of be mindful of that. And if it has seemed like the water's been sitting in the cup for a while, I would go ahead and remove that water and then put some clean water in there. So just something important to note. So that's general watering tips. As for fertilizer, generally you're not going to need to fertilize these that often, maybe during the spring, summer months, to give those pups a boost, but I mean, really, they do okay. You could even do like a specific bromeliad fertilizer, or even like an orchid fertilizer where you actually can use like more of a foliar spray rather than just a typical water soluble spray that you would put in your watering can. All right. Let's talk about care tips for air plants, because these are so fun. So air plants don't need a whole lot of light. Again, kind of like a bright indirect light. You don't want to put them in too much bright light or they're going to dry out quickly. So again, more humidity you can get them, the better they're going to thrive. When it comes to fertilizing, again, you can use like a foliar bromeliad or orchid spray as an option. Now, let's get into watering these. Honestly, I have found the best way to water my air plants by soaking them once a week. And I will soak them for generally like probably around a half hour to 40 minutes, depending. I would say like if you're soaking them more often, like more often than once a week or once or twice, you don't need to keep them in the water as often, like breaking that down to 20 minutes. But on the other hand, if you've gone a couple weeks without watering them, like say you've gone on vacation and it's been like 2 weeks since you watered, then you really want to let these guys soak longer, maybe tending upwards of 40 to 60 minutes. And you'll put them in lukewarm water. They don't like too frigid or too hot water. If you can allow that water to sit out for 24 hours prior, or using some kind of filtered water, just to kind of reduce the chloride ions that are in the water, because that might help prevent, like potentially some browning tips on the air plants, although that can also be caused from like lack of humidity too. Um, so, you know, maybe use that, but in general, probably keep them soaking in that water for about 30 to 40 minutes a week. And usually that's enough for mine. And if they tend to look nice and green afterwards, then they've taken all of that up. If they still seem like they're pretty dry, you might need to keep them in longer. And of course, after you have watered them, you know, just kind of like get like a paper towel or put them on a towel and just maybe lightly, you know, get all the water off their leaves so it's just not sitting on there for a long period of time. So just kind of rinse them off a little bit and let them dry out. So those are just general information for caring for your bromeliads. Really not prone to many other issues. Sometimes these plants can get like some fungal leaf spot diseases. That's when you just kind of have to avoid, you know, splashing the foliage with water, things like that. Making sure you're buying healthy plants to begin with. And then, you know, sometimes you might have like, I see sometimes like a spider mite issue, so just kind of watch out for any kind of webbing that you might see around those leaves or kind of even off into the cup. So, you know, other than that, really not a whole lot of issues other than if they tend to be overwatered, they might develop like a root or a crown rot. So I think that'll about do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye-bye.